1. First off, my roommate has always been a good friend of mine. So when I needed help with the rent and she was looking to move out of her parents' house, we both thought it'd be a good idea for her to move into my apartment. Turns out she's one of the nastiest people I know. Let's start with her bedroom. She's legit a hoarder. Every surface is covered in junk, trash, paper, or random stuff that literally doesn't have a place to be. She has high stacks of stuff stacked up to the ceiling sometimes. The only reason she doesn't have food or dishes stacked up in her room is because I go in there and get them whenever I clean up. She has got around 15 matted wigs piled up in a corner, cushions from a couch, a throwaway, piles of books and papers but no shelves to store them. Then there's her cat. She keeps the litter box in her already deplorable bedroom. When you walk through the front door, if her bedroom door is open, you can smell the litter box. There is another litter box in the bathroom that my boyfriend and I maintain, and it literally doesn't smell unless we ask her to keep up with it for a few days, because we can't get to it. Her carpet is so saturated with cat litter, so even when she cleans the box, the room still smells like cat crap. Don't get me started on the hygiene issue. I travel for work, so I don't see her very often, because she just so happens to leave the house for the few days I'll be home. But I can tell where she's been because I can smell it. Every time I come home, my throw blanket and couch cover emits a smell of urine, sweat, and unwashed vag. There are always private area-shaped stains on the couch cover as well. There are times where in person I notice an odor on her, but never thought of it as a big deal until we started living together. She leaves her dirty pads in the bathroom trash for days or weeks, even after I ask her to throw them out. And I swear she's not washing her hands because I buy expensive hand soap from a small vendor, so I keep up with how much we have, but whenever it runs out, she never says anything. I just come home to an empty soap dispenser. Lastly, the kitchen. The only times she cleans anything in the kitchen is when I ask her to. Like I said before, I'm barely home because I travel for work, but I'll come home to the kitchen having the same mess that was there 2 weeks ago, and she'll get offended when I mention how long a mess has been sitting somewhere. She recently messaged me saying she's been seeing roaches and asked me to get pest control to come out. I've been living in my apartment for 4 years and never had roaches before. Then when I asked her if it was clean, she never gave me a straight answer, so I had my boyfriend go there and send me pictures, and it was deplorable. I could smell the pictures through the phone. It was clear she's made several meals in the kitchen without cleaning in between. Dishes pile up in the sink and on the counter, caked up grease on the stove, nasty, greasy water in several pots and pans on the sink and counter. Old food, mold, roaches, everything. I recently made her agree to keep the place clean or she'd be asked to find somewhere else to go. She acted as if she had never known of a pest issue, so I had the apartment complex send evidence that they had been out and left notes on the door. Turns out the place was so dirty they couldn't do regular treatments. Our recent pet control treatment was several $100s, and I wound up paying it all. I'm so frustrated and want to keep her as a friend, but I want to get her out of the apartment ASAP. The lease isn't over until July, but I can't keep cleaning up after a grown adult. Edit. I wish I could just kick her out, but she's on the lease. There's been plenty of other issues, but I'd be here all week. A commenter described her as selfish and entitled, and that perfectly matches how I feel about her actions as well. She's given me the same sob story about how she hates doing dishes, and didn't grow up in a perfectly clean home, so wouldn't know how to replicate one. But that's not a good excuse in my opinion. If things don't change before the lease is up, then I will no longer be considering her a friend. Hellfreezer's note: usually in a lease there will be stipulations regarding the cleanliness standards. You're meant to keep the unit clean to a certain level. Look to see what your lease says specifically about that. If there's repeated infractions, it might not matter if she's on the lease if she keeps doing it. 2. I moved into my current house May of 2022. Some girl replied to my Facebook post that she had a vacant room in her house. The house had 6 other people. To this day, I still live with one of them and maintained a good relationship with most of the original housemates, except one person who I now despise with a passion. The person I shared the bathroom with was a 27-year-old gay guy from New Jersey. For the sake of the story, I'll call him Hank. The first thing I noticed was there were female soap and shampoo and razors. I was confused at first, but I didn't mention anything. I'm not one to judge someone's hygiene products. A few weeks passed by and I noticed strange behavior. My toothpaste went missing in the morning and reappeared when I came back from work. One time I found it in the kitchen, and later I found it on his sink. This happened with my mouthwash too. In addition, I saw black residue and ash on my sink. Every time I confronted him, he pretended to not know anything. One day I was informed by my other housemate, the girl who found me, that our landlord was planning to not renew our lease because we had months of late rent. She told me the source of the problem was Hank. He always pays rent late and never paid utilities. My other girl housemate complained he also stole food, and it made sense. When I first moved in, I picked up food for everyone in the house. I left it on the table and everyone confirmed they got it except one girl who was working late. She paid me but told me she didn't see it, meaning someone took it. Then one time my housemate ordered pizza for a party, and I caught him in the morning stealing leftover pizza, taking the whole box to his room. I also had a pool party and ordered Domino's pasta. One of the trays went missing when we were outside. I suspect it was him. I was informed that the person who lived in my room previously was a recovering drug addict who turned her life around. Hank was her friend who she met at rehab, who was also a recovering addict. When the house had a vacant room, she recommended him to the house. He was working at a rehab clinic and making stable income. He showed us a pay stub as proof of income. He took a month vacation before moving in at that time, but he quit his job and was working minimum wage at a burger restaurant, which explains why he was always financially struggling. The female hygiene products were from the girl who lived in my room previously. Hank was using them because he couldn't afford his own. There was also leftover furniture, and apparently he entered my room before I moved in to take it and furnished his own room. I was able to sweet-talk the landlord, and he was able to let us renew as long as we start paying him on time and I become the new head of house. We gave Hank an ultimatum for the next lease. He has to pay us a second security deposit that we can use to recover rent in case he's late again. He starts freaking out and gives us attitude, but in the end he reluctantly agrees. Days go by, and he begs me to give him another chance and if he can avoid the second deposit. I gave him the same answer, which was no. Now he goes on a camping trip with another housemate, and she complains how Hank self-invited his friends to the trip, where originally it was supposed to be the two of them. The 2+1s did not chip in for the camping pass and were a total nuisance. Hank and his friends just did drugs the entire time. When my housemate told him to chip in, he stated he can't pay her back right now, he only had $40 in his bank account. Take note that his rent and the extra deposit was well over $1,000. We realize there was no way he will get us the money, and he is a broke deadbeat. We decided to revoke his renewal. The lease cycle was over anyway, and he had less than 40 days left. He was insisting he gets to stay in the room for 60 days, but the contract he signed stated it was 30. We had enough of his gaslighting and playing victim. Here we're firm on not letting him renew. He would send me paragraphs and sob, telling us to let him stay, but it did nothing. The last 2 weeks were probably the worst. First off, his dog chewed up my comb in the bathroom, and he had the audacity to put it back in my drawer. You ain't slick. I confronted him, and he said he'll Venmo me for a new one. Didn't happen. He told us he'll be out by the 29th. His friend will pull up in a truck to get his things. Comes the 29th, and he said they'll come the 30th. I asked him when he's leaving, and he didn't respond. Come the 31st of August, and it was his last day he can legally be at the house. While most of the house was at work, he gets high and starts harassing my other housemate. When another one of my housemates came home, she caught him rummaging through her stuff in the garage, likely trying to steal. She then threatened to kick his butt. Apparently, he was also stealing her dog food to feed his dog. While under the influence, he took his dog and whatever he could into his car and drove off. I never saw him again. The remainder of the day till midnight, I kept texting him if he was going to come back to get his stuff. He never responded. The condition of his room was disgusting. Most of his stuff and furniture were still there. He left his big dog in a cage for most of the day, so there was a pile of dog poop. He was living in absolute filth. We did our best to clean up, but we had to postpone our new housemate from moving in because of the filth. Probably the most disgusting discovery was his diary. It was a sex journal detailing all of Hank's sexual fantasies and experiences with drugs. Here are the most disturbing things we found. 1. He was using meth. He described it as a meth habit when it was a straight-up addiction. He relapsed while he was living here, and it would explain his behavior and financial struggles. The black tar and ash in the bathroom was disposed of from his pipe. His window screen was popped out because that's where he blew it out. Also, meth gives you diarrhea. It explains why he was using toilet paper at an unusual rate. He left a giant crap stain in our guest bathroom that we had to clean up. 2. He was previously living with a couple in Newport Beach but was evicted. The reason was that he was performing sexual acts on the boyfriend. I'm unaware if the boyfriend was bisexual and consented to it, or if it was assault, but it didn't specify. I might have been sharing the bathroom with a predator. 3. Probably the most disturbing, he has hepatitis C. He is fully aware and spreading it to the men he invites over. He would sleep with a different dude every week. If you are a gay or bisexual male and you hooked up with a short, balding Caucasian male in Orange County in 2022, please get tested. So the girl who lived in my room previously, they didn't talk after she left. She said she was planning to drop his dog off in Iowa, and he's going to Florida. Granted, he said this while under the influence. She was shocked to find out he relapsed, and she said she would cut him off, as he was a negative influence. 3 weeks go by, and he texted me asking for his deposit. Immediately, he was told no. Here's a list of all the things he's done. Stealing, didn't pay utilities, paying rent late, angering our landlord, drugs in the house, property damage, and getting a dog which was against his contract, failure to clean up his room. He had the audacity to ask for his money back, and I told him to screw off and go to rehab. He continues to play the victim and act like we're being unfair to him, and I just blocked his number. I am usually a very calm person. If people do me wrong, I don't rapidly jump to conclusions, and sometimes I don't even speak on it. This individual literally pushed me to the limits. I've never hated someone more in my life. We still get his mail, so I don't know if he found another place to live, but I really don't care. He could be homeless on the street, and couldn't care any less. He was a menace, and I wish him nothing but the worst. Hellfreezer's note: as you do have the diary as proof that he is deliberately spreading disease to people, do report him to the local health authority, or possibly the CDC. I think Hep C is something that they would want reported to them. I looked at the list and that was on the things that you should report to them. So I wouldn't leave it alone, and certainly send that proof in to whomever you may contact, because what he's doing isn't just vulgar, it's not just cruel, it is illegal, and he could get jail time for it. 3. First off, Merry Christmas. For some reason I remembered this dirty roommate I used to have in college, and I'm feeling festive, so I decided to share it, but brace yourself, this is nasty. I was in my 3rd year of college. I had to repeat my 3rd year of college because I was depressed and wasn't attending classes. Anyway, I'm repeating my 3rd year after getting help, and I was determined to be the best student. We get assigned roommates, and I was assigned 2 guys. We were supposed to be 3 in the room. The second roommate saw the dirty roommate's name on the list, and immediately throws a fit, insisting he wants a different room and wouldn't say why. That should have been my first red flag. So, I get to my room, meet the dirty roommate in question, Dan. Dan did not look dirty, in fact, he had all his clothes perfectly arranged and didn't give any foul odor, so I'm like, it can't be that bad, right? Why was I wrong? Now that we were just 2 in the room, I pick 2 lockers and he does the same. Things move seemingly well, we both have keys to the room, things are good. Then about a week into living with this guy, I start to notice things. I never saw him take a bath, never saw him brush his teeth. His side of the room was always disorganized, laundry piles, food containers, etc. And he was always heavy-handed on cologne. One time he came back from the room smelling rancid. He undresses and I catch a glimpse of crap-stained boxers. These weren't skid marks, they were truck tires. I'm assuming those stains were also on his butt cheeks. I was so grossed out and told him to go take a bath immediately and burn the boxers. I guess Dan was embarrassed, and goes to the showers for the first time, and he was there for less than 5 minutes. I'm guessing he turned the shower on and off to wet himself. He comes back to the room, dries himself hurriedly, and puts on the same boxers, puts on lotion, and his soccer gear to go play. I was flabbergasted. Clearly his behavior was affecting the cleanliness of the whole room. Even though I tried, it just kept getting worse. About a month after, I began to notice we had rodent problems, and a stench that could kill anything. I had tried several times to get another room, but they were all full, and no one would switch. It was then I got the full gist about Dan. He had a reputation for being the nastiest, grossest person to live with. But of course I already knew this, and there was nothing I could do. Apparently his routine was the same. He came to school seemingly clean, but the rest of the year he'll be disgustingly dirty. Another occasion, he was preparing for Sunday service, and Dan decides to take a bath for real. I was so excited for him. He comes out of the shower smelling like soap and looking clean, and I'm just impressed. He then proceeds to his recycled underwear that were not washed and put them on. At this point, I'm just over it. He then turns to me and says he's out of lotion, and could I give him some of mine? And I immediately put my lotion in my locker and say no, because all I could see was getting an infection from his nasty butt. I lock my locker and go out to throw something away. I start to hear a streaming sound like pee. I turn around and see this guy peeing into his lotion bottle. He takes out his used spoon and uses the bottom of it to mix the urine with what was left of his lotion, shakes it, and then uses this concoction on his whole body. I knew something had to be done. I started plotting. I had been friends with the service workers in my hostel, just being nice to them and giving them money. So once in a while they would come do a deep clean of the entire room, and this guy just made it worse every time. So the barricade stayed up. One day one of the cleaners was having a bad week. She couldn't pay for some books for her kid, and I had some extra cash and decided to give to her. She was so grateful she said I needed their help any time, I could let her know and she'd clean for free. The breaking point. One day I get back from a rather stressful lecture, and exams were approaching. Before I could open my room door, I am greeted with a puke-inducing musty smell. I open the door to find him peeing in a water bottle. We get into a heated argument, and I kinda figured out why the room was smelling even worse than before. This idiot had been peeing in bottles and leaving them under his bed. Alongside half-eaten moldy food, crackled up cloths I imagine he must have pleasured himself with. I go mental and beat the crap out of him. He manages to escape the room, and I tell him not to show his face again. Now back to the peeing in the water bottle thing. I thought the lotion incident was bad, this was worse. Along with all of those, there were rodent droppings, mold on everything. I tear down the barrier and recruit the cleaners to dispose of everything. When they opened his locker, it was a horror scene. His recycled boxers with tire-sized truck skid marks, half-eaten food, and just nasty things, and a rat. Took them 2 days to clean. Then they fumigated the entire room. His whole bunk was actually discarded alongside his mattress and pillow. And don't get me started on his clothes. I just had them throw everything out. I go to the locksmith of the hostel and have them change the locks to our room. About a day after, I settled back into a clean room. Smelt nice for once, no rodents, just clean. Dan starts banging on the door asking for his things and that he needs to get back in. He proceeds to break the window and almost the door, trying to force himself back in. I knew this day was coming. I grabbed the makeshift bat by the door, and fueled by his hygiene or lack thereof, I just kept swinging all the while yelling all the nasty things he's done. At this point, everybody on our floor is out of their rooms cheering me on. Apparently, I was the first one to call him out on this. And some kind of unsung hero. I then point to the garbage bag on the floor and tell him his things are in there, and I must never see his face again. Dan is bruised and embarrassed, and doesn't pick up his things and just runs away. The gist is he kept crashing in different hostels till the year was over. But this story spread throughout the school and everybody knew Dan. Obviously, as rumors spread, so does his accuracy. Some added in things like he used to crap in a bucket and some other weird stuff. And it ruined his social life, and I felt terrible. I tried to look for him, even went to his department to apologize to him for the beating, but he ran the moment he saw me and I just felt so bad. Years later, a friend mentioned that he actually improved on his hygiene, and by the time he left school, he was no longer that guy. Conclusion. Now, before you say anything about my putting up with him or not leaving the room, I spend most nights crashing with my friends, but I couldn't stay because my hostel had a strict no squatters rule. My school was also states away from my home. Outdoor dorms were full, hostel where I stay was also full, and all I could do was deep clean my side of the room regularly and create a makeshift barricade on my side and his. As I said earlier, I had cleaners help me sometimes. I had also reported to management several times, and all they could do was warn him, which did absolutely nothing. So there's the story of a nasty roommate. I hope no one has to go through anything remotely this bad. 4. Please give me advice if possible. I feel like I've done all that I can do with no progress. I've lived with this roommate since August, and each month he gets worse. Here are some things he's done, but this list is not everything. 1. He had one rabbit, and I keep finding his rabbit's poop and bedding in the living room, hallway, and my bedroom. He was not paying the pet fee and refused to and lied about it for months. Now he has a second bunny that he is not paying for as well. He has now moved the bunny crate to the hallway and is blocking me in, so I have barely enough walkway to leave my room. 2. Washes his own dishes but never puts them away, and I always have to. But also will not wash my dishes even though I've washed his. He literally will leave singular knives or forks because they're mine but never puts away his own dishes or cleans the stove. 3. Always leaves me on read or delivered whenever I try to communicate with him about anything, whether it's me asking him to clean up or just saying I need him to do something, or it will take days to get a response. I've tried talking to him in person about his lack of communication, and he just looks at me with this dumb face and says nothing at all. My boyfriend has even tried to talk to him, and he hasn't changed. 4. Speaking of boyfriend, he once borrowed my boyfriend's hammer to hang up something in his room, and instead of putting it back on the table where he was asked to put it back, he left it on the floor in front of my door, and it was dark, and I almost stepped on it. I was livid, and he never apologized or acknowledged it. 5. His hair is always everywhere after he showers or uses the bathroom, and I have to clean it because I have never seen him clean it. It's not a normal amount of hair, it's like wrapped around his bottles on the shower in the sink, and the floor is always covered in it. It's disgusting. 6. He consistently leaves piles from the broom in corners of the rooms for days. I don't know why, and I can't figure out why it's so hard for him to sweep up piles because we have 2 brooms and 2 dustpans, and they're just there for days. Sometimes an entire week if I don't do anything about it. He moved 4 hours away to get away from his mother he supposedly hates. But she's been here every single month since we moved in, and stays for days at a time, and will fill the fridge with so much food I can't fit my own groceries. He doesn't allow me to use any of the groceries she buys for him, so it's problematic, because I don't have room for anything I need to use. So I'd say the biggest issues are his lack of communication, and his constant leaving me on read. His bunnies he doesn't pay for, and now are completely in my way, literally blocking me in. The fact that the bunny's litter is all over the floor at all times, and his messiness. I can't do it anymore. I've literally gone insane from him, and he doesn't ever apologize or acknowledge anything. Please help me. Well, what you want to do is you want to take those bunnies to a bunny rescue. They'll give the bunnies a place to stay and help to rehome them. See if there's one in your area. Or certainly report him to the landlord because he's breaking the rules. That's certainly going to help getting kicked out. Don't do his dishes, even as a courtesy, if he's not showing the same courtesy to you. Really no reason to. And I'm assuming you have designated shelves in the refrigerator. So if he's putting his stuff on yours, make sure he understands that if it's on your shelf, it's yours and you'll use it, or you'll just take it out to make room for your own groceries. And just proceed that way. I'd be very surprised if he says or does anything about it, because the fact that he doesn't respond to you shows that he's a spineless coward. 5. About 5 months ago, me and an older coworker went apartment hunting. She looked up a place on Zillow, and we went with that one even though I had major objections toward it. She made her mind up and had no interest in looking anywhere else, so I just went with it. The apartment we were shown was super luxurious, but after reading reviews and looking at pictures, this place was a hot mess. I brought this up to her, but she was very stubborn and refused to look anywhere else. Fast forward to our move-in. I found mold in the bathroom, a roach infestation, a water bill so high it's half of my portion of the rent, etc. But honestly, this is the least of my worries. She got a cat after liking mine and didn't take care of her at all. I fed the cat and scooped the litter box every day. She just enjoys the cat being around her without wanting to take any responsibility. The cat got worms and she refused to isolate her from mine because she didn't want her to be sad and lonely. My cat was fine, luckily, but this was a line that was crossed. She barely cleans at all. It's been 5 months and not once has she cleaned the bathroom. I clean it every week because, if I don't, it just won't get done. She throws things around and leaves crumbs everywhere. When she comes home from work or the store, whatever she had with her gets dumped in the common areas. When I tell you this girl hasn't cleaned anything but her bedroom? When I asked if she would split costs of cleaning products, she told me, "I'm not the one using them, so no." I spent like $75 our first month getting cleaning things we needed, like a mop bucket, broom, disinfectants, etc. When I get stressed at work and don't clean up, she'll tell me, "I think you're in a funk, you haven't cleaned, and it's getting kinda gross." She is lazy as hell, not to mention terrible with her money. She refuses to work 40 hours a week and consistently asks to go home early, which results in her pay being lower. While this shouldn't affect me, every month I pay both our portions of the rent on my credit card, and she pays me back in increments each paycheck. And by the way, her wage is more than enough to afford her rent. She also has no car payment, and her grandparents pay her car insurance, so it kinda irritates me that she expects this from me when I'm doing this with other expenses. She bosses me around like I'm her assistant. Go get that, turn that light on, give me the remote, grab my cat off the stove. The other night me and my friend were in my room, and she barges in and joins our conversation. Shortly after, she tells my friend to get out of her home. She gets super jealous when I hang out with anyone other than herself. She constantly looks at my location and asks me where I'm at, as if she's my mom. She constantly says hurtful things about my appearance or quick jabs such as, "I can tell you haven't been doing skincare recently." And when I get offended, she'll respond with, "That's just a cosmetologist coming out at me," which enrages me. She recently started working at a pet boutique, and it has been interesting. She took my cat off his usual food and forced me to incorporate their weird, expensive products instead. He got severely constipated, resulting in an ER visit. The job convinced her to get a puppy when she doesn't even take care of the cat she has. Our entire apartment, minus my room, reeks of dog poop and urine. He barks non-stop for hours on end when he's left in her room, chews up everything, and I am often left alone for the whole day with him, taking him out occasionally. She refuses to get him a collar because he has a harness that's better for them. I just let the dog pee and poop in her room now because putting that thing on the dog is a 20-minute event. It's also, like, not my responsibility at all. I'm not a dog person, really, so it's just super annoying. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Bad Roommates, episode 48. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so, and do support me on my Patreon page, which is linked for you in the description. It really does help. Alright, no more business today, so let's move on to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is: what is something you didn't try or do, it could be an activity, it could be a foodstuff, anything like that, till you were an adult, and you were actually just kind of unimpressed with it? Recently, I tried parsnips for the first time. All my life, never had parsnips. No reason for it, they're readily available. Just I bought a bag just before Christmas, and I used them just a little bit after Christmas, and they were fine. I roasted them parboiled them, roasted them with some garlic and black pepper and a little butter, and they were okay, but not that impressive. Honestly, I'd rather just have a carrot. Let me know what you think in a comment below, and before we go, let's take a look at the answer of the day from a previous video. And this question came from Bad Roommates 46, and was about, would you like to find glitter every day for the rest of your life? or one random Lego piece that you could stand on at some point, never knowing when it might get you. Of course, the plus side to that is once you stand on it, it would be done. And today's answer comes from, let's see, Jessica Fowler. I'd rather have the random piece of Lego. I collect Lego. So, if there was a random piece my foot found one day, I'd be thinking, yay, more Lego for my collection. Thank you very much for your answer, Jessica Fowler. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.